South African mobile operators and banking institutions top the list of South Africa's most valuable brands, according to Brand Finance South Africa's 50 Most Valuable Brands survey. It's an interesting study. Let's discuss the results. We're joined now by Brand Finance Africa chairperson Thebe Ikalafeng. Welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Another brand value survey. You're going to tell me why these studies are so important.
Well, the studies are very important because the brand is an asset, and as an organization where you spend hundreds of millions, in an organization like MTN where they're spending as much as $1 billion on marketing, it's important to understand what the effect of that is on the bottom line.
It's also an interesting barometer, I would imagine, of brand value in a region, but as a result of that, the state of the economy.
Indeed, because brands in many ways are a catalyst of economic growth. Brands in many ways reflect how the economy is doing. The accumulation of all the brands in a country or in a continent add up to what the country's wealth is.
This is no surprise that mobile operators and banking institutions top the list. They are, after all, surely the biggest companies.
Well, not only are they the biggest companies, but they're also what you call the structural industries. The industries which are important to the competitiveness of a country. They enable a country to connect a country, to facilitate trade and so forth.
What about mining brands, for instance? They also play a huge part in the economy.
The difference with mining brands is that more often than not, mining brands are not customer facing. So if you look at the survey is largely the brands which come to the top are those which interact with customers, whether it's for food or whether it's for business or whether it's for mobile and any of those. Whereas mining companies are generally business to business. And in South Africa, mining business, mining accounts for 10% of the country's GDP.
The interesting thing about these brand surveys, and I've seen many of them, is always the last column. It's the percentage change from the previous survey. So mobile operators and banking institutions, as you say, top the list, yet MTN's brand value is marginally down. Why is that? Why is that?
If you look at what MTN has done, MTN really set the benchmark a couple of years ago with their sponsorship of the World Cup and the investment they put behind that to really drive the brand. And as a result, many other brands like the Vodacoms and all those reacted to that to try and invest as well to take a share of that brand. But MTN remains by far the strongest brand in the country and perhaps in the continent as well, at a value of 40 billion compared to the next brand, Vodacom, at only 19 billion.
Fair to say the fight is on, though, but the gap is still fairly wide. ABSA down 17%. That's a worry.
Well, you know, if you look at the losers and the losers among the brands, Standard Bank and ABSA are at the bottom of the top 50 in terms of the losing as brands. And the reason they're losing against the brand financial services brands such as Capitec, which is the greatest mover at 40%.
40%.
At 40% of Capitec has moved. It's because brands like Capitec and brands like FNB have really invested in innovation, have really invested in customer relationship, has really invested in service. I mean, you know, FNB was named the most innovative bank in the world.
So the lesson there is if a brand is investing in new technology and sustaining that technology, its brand value is consequently going to increase.
You have to be clear, you have to sustain, and you have to be consistent, and you must invest in building the brand. Because if it's an asset, then you must protect it as well as invest in it.
One of the brands that has a huge interest in Africa, huge ambition in Africa is ShopRite, yet the value is only up 4% year on year. That would be disappointing, surely.
Well, ShopRite, if you look at not just here as a brand, but in retail as well, while traditionally has performed very well, has not performed so well in this past year compared to many other brands. But it remains the most Pan-African retail brand, shopping retail brand in South Africa.
What typically causes a brand to lose value?
If you don't invest in building your reputation, because what brands are about trust, they're about reputation, and about performance. It's about delivering on the promise. But most importantly, it's about keeping up with your customers. You know what I love is what one of the founders or one of the marketing directors of Unilever in Canada says, I want to get to the future so that when my customers arrive there, we are ready. So brands have to be ready for customers where customers are headed.
And not only that, but listening to the customers, one bad tweet can kill a brand.
It's very, very important. I mean, we've learned many years ago, whether it's in the 80s when Coca-Cola tried to change just the formula and not listen to customers, and they learned very quickly that brands don't belong to you, brands belong to customers. You are just a custodian.
And even more so with the advent of social media. In that top, I think the top 10 or 15, one of the biggest gainers is MediClinic. What's MediClinic done?
Very, very interesting, MediClinic. I think, MediClinic rebranded about 3 years ago. They become a global brand now, not just a South African brand with presence in Namibia, in the Middle East as well. I think that also goes to show you that part of building a brand, and particularly when you look at the valuation of brand, is we are not only looking at the relationship they have with customers and what they spend with marketing support, but we also look at how they are performing on the bottom line. So the valuation is a combination of actual financial performance as well as brand strength.
It also tells us that people will always need telephones, money and healthcare. Thebe Ikalafeng, thank you very much for joining us. A Brand Finance Africa chairperson, Thebe Ikalafeng, with us here on Newsnight.